Well, hello, everyone. Happy Friday. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's amazing to get to hear the fireside chat, and I have my brother all loaded to meet some of you folks. So thank you for having me. So today I want to talk about something that really changed my life, and that's burnout. And let me go ahead and get this set up for you. Present. Okay, sorry. All right, so I want to go ahead and talk about something that changed my life, and that's burnout. I am the marketing director at FemTech Focus, and we are a nonprofit organization that works to support entrepreneurs in FemTech, men and women, whether they work on sex tech, menopause, fertility, you run the gamut. So I'm passionate about entrepreneurship. And when I experienced burnout, I went through a phase where I talked to all my colleagues and I said, okay, what is this? What is this feeling? They said, well, you're burning out. And so this is sort of a toolkit for how to deal with burnout and bounce back based on some of the 40-something interviews I've had with entrepreneurs. So a little bit about myself. Like I said, my name is Allie. I am the marketing director at FemTech Focus and a two-time burnout. So FemTech Focus is a nonprofit dedicated to empowering FemTech entrepreneurs. We are at femtechfocus.org, and we are constantly hosting AMAs. We have an accelerator program going. We connect people to networks and funding and all the right people that they need in order to make their FemTech startup successful. So outside of that, I'm a marketing strategist, and traditionally I've worked for startup companies and then all the way to Fortune 50 companies, including Dell, Amazon, and Budweiser. And then recently I was named Women in IT Silicon Valley Digital Transformation Leader of the Year. Now this is amazing, but really what I want to get to is the crux of the conversation in terms of how burnout affected me. And I'm not saying this to spend a bunch of time on myself, more so to sort of give myself street cred and let you know who you're talking to. So when you see the knowledge that has surfaced from myself and about 40 other people, you'll know where we're coming from. So I started a marketing firm back in 2016, and I was the first person in my family to be an entrepreneur. Everyone was either a teacher or a government official, which was great. I love them, but they had no way of telling me what to do with my business, how to set up LLC, how to do my taxes, so what and so forth. So I did what I did, and I just did everything. And I went headfirst into the wall. And I said, okay, I'm gonna do this and this and this. And what it came down to was not taking care of myself, not eating correctly, not budgeting my time efficiently, but things were going really well. So the funny thing about burnout is there's this misconception that burnout can happen when things are going poorly. They can actually happen when things are going well. And the thing that was the sort of aha moment for me is when I lost one of my biggest contracts that took me forever to get on my own. And that was a contract for the Discovery Channel. So in all this hubbub of things being amazing, as a result of being fatigued and constantly having headaches and being weak from not really eating very well, I lost a contract to Discovery Channel. And I cried for about 2 weeks. And that's when what I'm about to reveal it came to the fore. It was me calling a friend and being like, okay, yeah, so what do I do? She's like, well, have you tried sleeping? And I was like, yeah, I'm busy. And and I was like, well, of course she's going to say that. Everyone says that. Oprah says that. That's not going to help me. And then when I called another friend in New York and another friend in Buenos Aires and another friend in Atlanta, another friend in Chicago, I started to see these trends come to the fore and progress. So this is what I've learned. This is what burnout looks like. It's about a $30 billion loss that we're seeing right now. So entrepreneur firm failure and bankruptcy is likely to contribute significantly to the $300 billion of burnout that we see in the US annually. This is what is attributed to burnout. Now, the unfortunate thing about this is that there are very few studies right now that look at burnout specifically towards entrepreneurs. So this is one little nugget here. A lot of times burnout looks at the mass industry, and very, very little reports I've seen look at women in burnout. So we see a flex of ourselves here. And 50% of burnout is the percentage of startup community members who burn out, according to Business Insider. Business Insider, if you're interested in these nerd stats like I am, actually has a fair amount of reporting to do with burnout and entrepreneurship. So take a look at it if you want to. And these are the stages of entrepreneurship. This is something I list, Frudenberger and North, and they were out of the Harvard Business Review, said these are a couple of signs of burnout. And the reason why I mention this, and I'm just skipping ahead a little bit, is an ounce of prevention is a pound of cure. One of the things that we saw across the board when I was doing these interviews was that it's easier to care for burnout before it happens, but that's easier said than done. So some of these things are conflated, like working hard. Of course we work hard. Withdrawal, odd behavioral changes. But these are some things to kind of keep a lookout for. It's easier to anticipate burnout than react to it. Prevention is a cure. Now, why is that? I'm lumping these sorts of nuggets of information into groups. And one of them inevitably that surfaced, surprisingly, was time. Run the day before the day runs you. Plan your time effectively. Keep a predictable daily routine. Stick to working hours and go into a cave. Now, what does that mean? Now, the toolkit is actually things that were recommended to me or I've tried myself. I'm not getting commission for any of these things. These are just certifiable things that have helped me dig and claw myself out of burnout. So Habitica, if you haven't tried it already, it's sort of like an Asana project manager system. It's a platform that gamifies task completion. So that helps people when they're trying to understand like what takes priority first. Pomodoro method, I like tomato-timer.com. It is a way of managing your time in 25-minute chunks. And then you have 5-minute breaks, and then 25-minute chunks and 5-minute breaks. And it's a great way to have head downtime. Now, the reason why I recommend .com and not a mobile app is because you're more likely to become off task if you see your phone in front of you, let alone touch it. So if you're typing and your phone is just like right there and just kind of like low key checking notifications out of the side of your eye, that behavioral scientists said is enough to be off task. So what I do is put my phone behind me, if possible, cross your fingers, right? And go on a URL website or go to a website and type in tomatotimer.com. And I use a desktop version. That way I don't have to touch mobile at all. And then Cave Day. Cave Day is a really cool startup out of, I want to say, the East Coast. And basically what it is you get a membership, but it's very reasonably priced. And you are in a Zoom meeting, which I know sounds like hell sometimes, but with a bunch of other people who need to get stuff done. And so these are people who said, okay, in this 1 hour block, I'm going to work on, double checking the UI UX of this website and just doing a scan and making notations. And everyone else says, I'm going to do this. And then you do it for an hour. And it can be an hour block. It could be 3-hour blocks. It's whatever you sign up for. But it's cool, kind of, to see all the little faces in front of you of people who are doing work. So it's almost an accountability. But it's been a great way that some entrepreneurs have told me that they've used us to be productive. Guilt. I realized that I could change the type of work that was leading to the burnout without giving up the cause. This is something interesting that actually came up in the motherhood talk that we had prior to mine. And one of the things we were talking about is like, how do you deal with guilt and self-care and deal with your work? And that's like something that kind of hit me over the head with a hammer. But here are a couple of ways that other folks have approached that. There's a great quote by Alan Cohen. I did not interview him, by the way. This is just a great quote. There is virtue in work and there's virtue in rest. Both overlook neither. So the key is that get a decent amount of rest each night. So if you do not take adequate time to rest your body will make time to do so, scheduled or unscheduled. It's one of the reasons why, like, once I accidentally fell asleep in a meeting, and it's not that I didn't care, it's that I've been up for like 48 hours. Not a great way to treat your body. And eat mostly healthy. I like to reward myself with ice cream. So that's like my only thing that's like not totally healthy, but yeah. So the toolkit would be, if you're into TED Talks like myself, take a look at a TED Talk by Stefan Sagmeister. It's called The Power of Time Off. And what Stefan says in the TED Talk is he shares how he conducts his business with a year off. And he showed me, like, me as the listener, that, one of the key elements of business growth is taking some time off. And it allows time to feed your mind, your inspiration, your business approach, and your strategy. But the way he says it was like the best 14 minutes I've ever spent on a lunch hour listening to him or listening to a talk. So I highly suggest that you check that out. 2-Minute Mornings by Neil Pasricha. I don't want to murder his name, but I probably did. Is a great book as well. It's about $4 and I got it on Amazon. It's about the size of your phone. And in the morning while I'm drinking my coffee, I write down 2 things that I'm grateful for and 2 things that I'm, you know, want to see happen that day. And so it's a little time to connect before the day starts, which was a theme that I heard over and over and over again. It's like settling yourself before the day runs you. And so it's a great way to check in. Mental and physical health. I cannot, stress this enough. I think that this is something that was hard for me because I was so tired all the time. And a lot of the folks that I talked to are like, yeah, but I just had to kind of do it to get out of my space. And I definitely understand. But what research says is nothing that probably would be a surprise to us, but it helps our stress level. Physical exertion helps our stress level. It gives you a sense of well-being and a sense of balance. And it helps to practice mindfulness for clarity. And mindfulness is something that I used to think was something that, oh, I have to go for a walk. I have to be outside. I can't be in a meeting. One mindful activity that I like to do when I'm in meetings that doesn't make me look like a kook actually is, when you're sitting, even on a Zoom call or in a physical meeting someday in person, take a look. If you start to kind of feel leery, take a look at what's around you and pick a color. So I usually pick the color blue because it's one of my favorite colors. And I pick how many shades of blue I see. And it's something that takes me about 2 minutes. But when I feel myself wane and sort of like kind of not pay attention and float off, it brings me back. But it still helps me be very mindful of what I'm doing. And that's something that was suggested as well. Practice mindfulness for clarity and join a community. So there are a lot of communities to join. We at FemTech Focus just joined Mighty Networks. So I think there's about, I want to say 300, a little bit over 300 of us online where we just chat and geek out about tech and FemTech. And we sit around and it's pretty cool because there are like special little resources in there. But I mean, there are other networks that I've joined as well, just to say hello during my lunch hour, if not, added personal time later. Now, the toolkit. So I did mention Mighty Networks, but one thing that has also helped me as well is there's this really cool app called Centeve, and it's a startup out of Houston, Texas. And what they do is it's a free app that allows you to raise money for charity just by tracking your exercises. So if I go for a walk, an extra long walk with my dog, or I happen to go for a run, I'm earning money for charity. So it's something that, even if I can get a little in my head sometimes, like, oh my gosh, like, I don't have time for this. But if I want to raise like $10 for Fido, I helped a dog get his wrist fixed up, then I actually helped earn that as part of a group of charity. And it cost me nothing, but a couple minutes of my time. So that was an external motivator. And lastly, this is actually something I said. I've burned out twice, once pretty badly, and then once I bounced back pretty quickly. But watch how you grind before you get ground up. And it's one of those things that in this entrepreneurship, tech, startup, business, all these sort of descriptives community, there's such a emphasis on hustle, 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 hustle. And I love it. But at the same time, you kind of have to put it at bay, because if you grind too hard, you're going to get ground up. And so that was one of the reasons why I thought it important to share the knowledge that I had today with you from the 40 umpteenth people that I've spoken with over the past 3 years about burnout, because burnout is real. Again, it's something that can happen when it's great and something that's not great. But it's something that it wasn't until I had that like exploratory sense to like ask people for advice that I realized how big it was. It was bigger than me. And it's something that I was grateful that there are resources out there, apps, reading, whatnot, that I could look to help reset myself and claw my way out of this experience. But luckily, surrounding myself with women in the FemTech community and then geeks in general here in this amazing conference, I can do so a little bit easier. So that is all I got for you. I wanted to say thank you. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your time. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.